No, international pressure is appropriate. I can tell you officially without any shadow of doubt that Mr. Museveni is in Uganda today as president because, as I said before, and it's very deliberate, that he was backed by London and Washington from the time he came to power. He entrenched himself as such. Then, in the middle of his stay in Uganda, he's managed to blackmail, Anglo America. So when it's convenient for him, he will tell them that, look, if you touch me, I'll cause war in Rwanda. If you touch me, I'll extend the other on South Sudan, because it was used and has been used by this guy. So it's like a spoiled child. That is unfortunately Mr. Museveni. And then later, as I said, blackmail them, I do this, or if you don't do this to me, I'll do that. So I think I also know that there's an element of a puzzle for the Western powers. Now I think the guy is becoming an expert, including in trying to sneak in his son to continue. So it's a bit of a PR thing, and this is the thing that must be accepted in the West. Homosexuality, generally is a very unpopular thing in Africa generally. I am yet to scholarly come around with it. I have argued that when I was growing up, from the time when we were growing up, without knowing much of this, without prejudice, we knew in my language we call particularly gay men. We got a name Nyasigwel, so we knew, that we were living with with gay men, particularly in our communities. I don't know at what time my mother, particularly, or father, who at school were told that watch out, there is some funny killer or monster down the road or in the next village. No. So we've always lived with people of homosexual tendencies without problem. How this becomes much more of an issue, I think I'll close with it a little bit. Mr. Museveni, knowing very well that this is the thing, and that the debate in the West, particularly, I think, on the question of gay marriage. Now, this is my opinion. Once the issue of gay marriage came in, I think, and considering this conversation myself, as I said, I saw some of these things happen, conversations happening in the UK. In the 90s, Tory MPs started to be outed, things like that. So I think the more the conversation opened up globally, and partly because of global media, and partly because then comes the idea of gay marriage. I think once then the particular African churches took position, particularly from the Anglican sector, to begin to challenge, and this becomes issues. These things went to the pulpits across the continent, in this case, Uganda's case, the pulpits on a day-to-day basis. And the clergy ironically took position on these things, and then the population started riding around it. Now, from Museveni, facing pressure and increased unpopularity and threat by Robert Chagulanyi, the candidate who believes that he defeated him, Bobby Wine, as you guys know, in the West. I think basically wanted to say that how can I reclaim the moral space, moral base? So this thing was picked to whip Ugandans that we are now your saviors. We cannot save you in terms of economics. We cannot save you in terms of health services. We cannot save you in terms of education. We cannot save you agriculture. We cannot save you the infrastructure. In fact, the bridges can break between Kampala and Barara. But that terrible stranger, the terrible neighbor of yours who's this abominable gay man, or those two women in the room, are a big threat to you, and we are here as your protectors, your security protectors. The black man, or that white man, or that Asian there, the other becomes, the terrible one, and the one to be focused on. And conveniently, the whip is the homosexual in Uganda. What does the West do? The West has got the leverage, as I said, because Mr. Museveni is basically their guy. Ironically, once the first element of legislation was passed, he knew there was an uproar, an outcry, and then took it back to Parliament. Now, the new legislation, as amended, was passed very quickly, returned to him. I can tell you that even as recent as 2 days ago, I was trying to get the draft element of that bill, and nobody has got it, and many people don't want to release it. And I've had a conversation with 2 members of parliament, and they don't have access to it. In part, you can see how the game is being played, but the game is being played with human beings rather than animals or equipment. And that's sort of the game. Passed as amended, I genuinely don't know what the amendments are. Unfortunately, as I said here, we've got a monolithic dictatorship that gets its way by whatever means. And really, because those of us with alternative views, particularly political views, are trying to gain traction as opposition, these guys want to try and throw anything. In fact, Robert Chagulanyi, the leader of opposition, was successfully almost being presented as that guy with lots of money, but that's game money, meaning foreign money. No, I think it will almost certainly be blanket. And I can speak, as I said, I'm telling you a little bit authoritative from the ground that the voices that are commonsensical will be suppressed voices. And there are not many people who have the courage to come out and articulately have a conversation of the kind that I am having with yourselves on these matters and challenge these authorities on the basis of their merit. So no, there are very few, if any. In fact, I actually don't know any major religious leader at a bishop level or higher who's taken this position. Nor do I know any political leader on average who's able to take a position. Some of us are relatively lone voices. And by the way, I thank you for that, because I want to tell you that there's a very important point that I wanted to make sure that is for the record. This regime is cheeky, extremely hypocritical, and in some aspects, some of what they do are actually criminal. For the record, and you can Google this, Mr. Museveni's soldiers, around the time we were escaping to UK to come and beg for space for our lives, subjected northern Uganda to a war of terror and a war of genocide, and that's official. And as I said, and once that was happening, I know senior British government officials, including ministers, who were saying Mr. Museveni is trying to stabilize the country. But that's a slightly different topic. But I think it's important for this topic. I want to tell you that it's on record that government soldiers government male soldiers repped predominantly actually community leaders in northern Uganda. So men repping men. This is on the record. So I have always said every time I join platforms on these matters, particularly on the local networks, and I'm going to be discussing the budget for some other networks much later, I say, you have no moral authority to claim that you're the protector of the family, protector of marriage, the anti-homosexuality person. So if you say you were, where are your soldiers, male soldiers, who repped men in northern Uganda? Because rep, is a crime. So if you're saying that men and women cannot get involved in same-sex consensual relationship, what about in this case, men repping men, meaning subjecting a man who is not, who's heterosexual, and you're forcing him, on this case, or a man to have sex with a man, or a woman to have sex with a man? How much criminal can that be? And how much major sin can that be? So if these guys cannot answer that, actually, I think I've given you a very important point there. So if Mr. Museveni's regime cannot explain to Ugandans and the international community who those rapists were, where they are, if they are apprehended, and what penalties they got, then they have no basic moral right to claim that they're concerned about the person next door having a consensual relation with whoever they choose to have. That is sort of where it is. But as I said, the voices are very, very, very far wide, and I can say almost certainly absent for the reason that I gave. Now, finally, because of the nature of polity, because we almost have a state capture, and because we have a military dictatorship that now swims in a little bit of what you can call mini democracy, these guys have got monopoly over the narrative, political narrative, the media narrative, and if you like, thought narrative. And particularly because they also control money and everything else, which cleric, perhaps which bishop, wants to put up his hand at the end of the day because they think that their daily bread is guaranteed to be bartered from the other end. I'm not sure whether it's the right way to do it. Now, politically, political leaders like myself in opposition would and should be able to take a position. I can also tell you that I'm not quite sure whether my political colleagues in opposition have been clear about this, in part because maybe people want populism, understandable in politics, but I'm not quite sure whether it's the right way to go as far as some of these issues are concerned.